episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. Today, I have Catalina Del Carmen with me. Hola, Catalina. How are you?
I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate you. I'm excited to talk and get to know you better too.
I know, me too, because I have actually been listening to your podcast.
Same.
And I don't listen to every episode. I mean,
Same.
as podcasters, it's hard to listen to
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
But it's all I think it's always important to
Yeah.
hear from others and what they're doing
Yeah.
and support one another ultimately.
Yes. Yes.
So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm gonna start with your bio. We go from the bio, then we share about what we're drinking. All that. I know you're not drinking today, but I'm gonna ask you a couple questions anyway. So
Sounds good.
Catalina del Carmen is a content coach and host of the Show Up Real podcast with over 100,000 downloads. Congratulations, girl. That is
Thank
so
you.
awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's
You
been a long,
help, huh? Yeah,
it's
yeah,
been a
no,
long
I want to
time.
hear all
You
about this
know.
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yes. It's hard. It's hard.
it is.
She helps people own who they are now and show up real in every aspect of their life. She has helped hundreds of coaches grow their businesses and make their first four figures in business. And she's been featured in the New York Times about her quitting her six-figure job to go all in on her business. And she says she wasn't even that successful yet. So like,
True story.
okay, where's my I need my New York Times article now.
Yeah, it was a crazy journey, especially when I quit, but
Oh my gosh. Well, I cannot wait to hear that. But before we get into that, Chisme, we always start with the wine. And I know you're like, I wish I had wine, but you don't. So it's
pretend.
okay. What are you drinking today?
This is going to be very sad. I put water into my coffee cup that I had finished and the ice was melting. And I put water in there because I wanted the water colder. But I'm going with it. It's what we got to work with. And here's what I promise you. I will have a drink tonight and I will think of you, okay?
Thank you. Thank you. I am having it's friend of a podcast, Honrama Cellars. It's
Ah,
their 2019 Cabernet Sauvignon.
oh,
And
mwah.
it's a rainy day. It's
Oh
one of
my
those
God.
days we're recording where it's actually
I
raining in
wish I
Southern
had some wine.
California,
You know,
right? I didn't pour myself a big one, but enough that I can enjoy.
beautiful. I love wine actually.
Do
Like
you?
love,
What's your favorite type of wine?
oof. So like, a Pinot Noir is a
Hmm.
good, table every day. I like Pinots. I really like Chiantis, like it's
Oh, yeah.
Chianti from Italy. And then I would say my favorite is like a very simple Napa cab. Like
Yes,
just
this is a Napa
oh,
cab.
mwah. Oh my God, I'm
Big,
so jealous actually.
bold. I mean, it's Latino, it's a Latino brand.
I'm thinking, why do I not have wine in my office? I'm like, this is crazy. Wait, can you give me the name again? I would
Yes,
love to
it's
know.
Honrama Cellars.
With an O?
H-O, yeah, with the H.
Oh, okay.
Honrama.
A. Nice.
And it's so I don't know if you know, I actually created the first directory of Latino wine brands that are based in the US.
What?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes, I created the very first one. We uh in September, it came out September of 2021. So we're about to celebrate 4 years and we have 100 vintners on there now, 100 brands on there now.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. Do you
So
do you plan on you should do like your own what do they call it? Wine?
label?
Not well, that
Oh,
too.
club.
Club. That's
Okay, we're
right.
working on something. Well, I'll talk to you
Ah,
offline about things that are happening.
okay. I would be down for that. My husband would love it too. He loves wine. We're like wine people. So,
My husband is an ex like high-end bartender.
oh, nice.
So he used to travel the world. Like he's been to South Africa, he's been to Puerto
Wow.
Rico, he's been to Spain, like on all these drink competitions that he used
Yeah.
to win
So
and be part
cool.
of and all this and that. So, but he's no longer like in that industry.
Yeah.
But he still knows about these things, right? He still
Yeah.
knows about it. So he'll drink wine with me. He's not as into it as I am, but he does know a lot because of his,
Yeah.
of his former career. So
That's so
salud.
salute. My imaginary. Literally.
I swear this is so good. I just love it.
Hmm.
I love it. I love it.
Have one tonight.
That's right. No, you definitely need to, like, if you want to go visit some spots, go to the directory and you'll find all kinds
I
of.
will. No, I will for sure will. I'm overdue for some I want to do like a little wine. I used to live in the Bay Area,
Mhm.
and being so close to Napa, you like take it for granted until you leave the Bay. And then I'm like, well, shit. I mean, they have Temecula in
Right.
Southern California.
There's two Latino owned wineries in Temecula. You want to go, just let me know. We can meet there.
Oh, I'm hitting you up. Because when I went, my husband and I went last year and we had a ball, but it was one night. We want to
Mhm.
do like a full thing. So
Well, let
anyway,
me correct myself. There's two Mexican American ones. There's an Argentinian one as well, an
nice,
Argentinian owned winery in
nice.
Temecula as well. So I want to make sure I'm
Yeah,
being proper and correct, right?
yeah,
We don't need
yeah,
people coming after me. Actually, our audience, and I'm sure your audience is like really rad. You
yeah.
know,
They
they
are. They are.
it's awesome. So let's get into it. Let's get into
Okay.
it. Because obviously you have, your own podcast, Show
Yeah,
Up Real
yes,
podcast. Geez Louise. But like obviously there is a whole story. There's a whole like
yeah,
life that you lived before podcasting.
yeah.
And like I cannot wait to hear it because I was listening to, like I said, I've listened to some of the podcasts. I've heard some of your story. I've heard like some of the stories of people that have been on, but ultimately, and I love this for you because I love this for me too, right? I think we're very similar in the fact that we wanted to create space. You're specifically for women, mine's across communities of color,
Yeah.
but the whole purpose,
Mm,
right? And I always say my North Star is
mhm.
really about amplifying voices across communities of color.
Yes.
And I can talk about mine, but this is not about me. This is about you. So I want to hear about the journey that brought you to this point. Starting
Yeah.
with like, did you grow up in the Bay Area? Is that where you're from? Like, I want
Yeah.
to hear, girl.
I'll give you a little lowdown. So, born in San Francisco, literally. So born and raised in San Francisco proper until I think we moved to the East Bay around 9 years old. I am first gen Guatemalan American. My mom, uh, she my whole life she was a single mom, and I also have an older sister. So it really was like this Three Musketeers, the three of us, like my whole life. And I grew up, I was the youngest, but I definitely took on a lot of that, like first, like I resonate a lot with like the eldest daughter stuff because of our own drama and trauma in my little family. But I took on a lot of like the older sister stuff. So I grew up in the Bay Area. I mean, yeah, I even went to college at San Jose State. I lived everywhere in the Bay. I lived in I worked in Palo Alto. I lived in San Jose, Fremont, Union City, San Francisco, Oakland. In Oakland for like 10 years. So that's where I grew up. And I'd say that I I am a person who actually always kind of knew I wanted to have a business. Or I thought either that or I was gonna like rise up the ranks. I was very career oriented.
Mhm.
I was always very money driven as like even a high schooler. And the thing with me though is I wasn't a great student. I was good enough. I was a good enough student, but I was like more of the person who was friendly with everybody. So like I got by cheating a little here and there, having my, and but I ended up getting into San Jose State. And I struggled when I got to college because it felt like a reality check from an education standpoint. And I almost like my first 2 semesters, I like completely bombed and I got on academic probation. And I kind of had a little come to Jesus moment where I was like, okay, like, are you going to graduate? Or are you going to like literally get out of school? Like, what's going to happen? So I ended up staying. I started taking my stuff seriously, but it still took me 10 years to finish school, like to get my degree. And while I did that, I grew a career in retail. I worked in like in restaurants in the beginning, and then I switched over to retail. And I worked at Nordstrom for, I want to say 8, 9 years. And I had about 12 jobs there. It was a really wonderful
I was
opportunity.
about
But
to say I worked like seasonal in Nordstrom, and it was like
yeah,
one of the best places I'd ever worked.
I loved working there, honestly, especially looking back. I think, the grass is always greener. Like you always think the grass is greener somewhere else, but wherever you're at. But for me, looking back now, I'm like, that was such a great job. I had such good opportunities. I got,
Was this during the like piano era where they had
yeah,
a live piano? Okay, just as a quick like FYI for people who don't know, Nordstrom's went public, but the family actually purchased back the shares. So
just
it is
recently, right?
just recently, within I
Yeah,
think like the last few months. So Nordstrom's, I feel like is going to go back to
yeah,
what it used to be because when it went public and they had
yeah.
like this, how I don't know, it just
A lot
it didn't
changed.
feel the
Yeah,
same. It didn't
yeah,
feel that luxurious like it used to. Even
yeah.
if it wasn't, I don't know. Well, anyways,
No, no, I
sidebar.
agree. I totally get it. I have a lot of love for that company because I really did grow up professionally there. They have such an at that time, you could only get promoted if you started on the sales floor. So every single person who worked on in with a customer had to start on the sales floor. So every store manager, every general manager was a salesperson. And I remember loving that because it was very entrepreneurial. And, anyways, I had a great career there. And that's kind of what I did with college until I finally graduated. I ended up getting into tech because tech was where the money was at in the Bay Area, and that's what I wanted to do. But I just always felt very underdog because one, I graduated so late. I was like, so late at that time, right? It felt late, 28. But I was interning with like freaking 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds, and I had all of this experience. I had managed literal teams of 20 people, like managed teams from 20 people ages 18 to 65. Like I had so many skills and I just felt like no one understood them in tech, like especially as a Latina. And I also, I wasn't good at administrative stuff. I have ADHD now. Now I know that, but like I just struggled a lot with trying to prove myself and always trying to prove myself, especially for raises. So that was the gist in terms of like my career. And then I got into a great tech job, as like a coordinator, and I grew a career there. And that was my last job before I was there for quite a few years. And I think my last role was sales training lead or something like that. And I helped sell training to our customers who are buying the tech. Um, so I was in sales a little bit, but I will say in my professional career, I just always felt like the underdog. I think like many of us,
Yeah.
especially when everyone's predominantly white. That was the last job I had, and I ended up leaving that to go all into my business. Um, which was really I didn't have much of a business.
Right. Well,
Um,
I mean, that do many people do when they first start, but
yeah,
I want to kind of go back to a couple of things because the
yeah,
first
yeah,
thing I wanted, because I feel like this helps like shape your outlook
yeah,
in
first.
regards to all of the places that you moved and all of the places that you moved. Obviously, the people are going to be different, probably in the
Yes.
different neighborhoods.
Oh my
So
God.
I
So
would love to hear a little bit about that in regards to maybe a couple of the places that you lived in that really opened your eyes, maybe to the world that you wanted to be part of. Maybe that was
yeah.
tech or the world or like or how people viewed you,
Yeah,
or how you viewed others based on like just what you were watching living in so many different areas of the Bay Area?
for sure. I mean, I'll say that's such a good question because the first big transition for me was moving to the East Bay from San Francisco. I was a kid, I was 9 years old, and we moved to San Lorenzo, which is right between Hayward and Union City, for those who are familiar. And it's a suburb in the East Bay area. And when I moved from San Francisco to that city, which is only like 30 minutes away, I thought I moved to the country. I thought we were in Texas. Like, first of all, I had never been around so many white people. I didn't know a world outside of San Francisco, California. Like, sure, we went places, but like, I
You
remember
were in the city.
I
That
was
was your
a
daily life
city
living in the
girl,
city.
like straight up city girl. So that was a big transition for me. I remember too, I was 9 years old and I had, I literally saw, so I saw a cross in someone's front yard, and I went to my mom and I told her that, because there's also so many white people, I told her that we live in an area where there's KKK. I legit, because I had just learned about that. Like, I had just learned about that at that age.
Girl, they're gonna burn us.
I'm like, everyone's white, and there's a cross in front of that house.
I mean, if you had just learned about that, I could see as a kid, you're a little
As
kid
a kid,
still.
I thought I was in the country. Turns out San Lorenzo's incredibly diverse. Once I went to school, I had such a better understanding, but I remember that was such a transition in terms of like, oh, like there are places actually remember also going to in high school. I was a part of a program called Upward Bound for like first gen college students and low income college students. And we went on a college tour in the South. It was called the Civil Rights College Tour. And we went to Alabama, Mississippi, Florida. And that opened my eyes because I was like, oh my God, there's like no, like it's black or white. Like that's it. Like there's no one in the middle. And I remember feeling like, whoa, like this is crazy. But those two times really shaped what I thought of the world. And what I think the lesson was that there are places that are different, like there are places that are different. And as I grew into like career and all that, I think in I'm really, really grateful for having a lot of my professional growth in retail and in restaurants. I feel like having that in my experience just it has a very it gave me a very service-driven attitude, especially in business. It's so valuable. But going into tech was interesting because I think I realized that people who are making lots of money are just like you and me. Like they're not different. And I think that's because it was a startup. I got a lot of access to like people that were very high up, and I put them on a pedestal in my head. But I think that role really gave me a lot of exposure to, oh, these are just like regular people who have these big roles, and that I just remember thinking like, okay, I don't know what it was about my upbringing that like separated so much like I'm a Latina and if I'm in this white environment, it feels this way. But I think actually in tech, as much as I felt I had to prove myself, as much as I felt like I wanted, I kind of have frustrations about being the only one that looked like me. I also met so many people that like were so kind and open to me, and we're just normal people. And I
Yeah.
think what it opened up my eyes to is like, okay, if they have a chance, I have a chance. And it's not that they're wildly smarter or that they're wildly this or that. It's just that they ask for what they want and they tell people what they are doing. And they are very vocal about, their thoughts, ideas, etc. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Does
And
that?
disciplined, I'm sure, because everything takes discipline. So you have to
Yeah.
keep doing it. I'm
Yeah.
all like, I love that. I mean, I did, oh my gosh, I don't, to go on a college tour of colleges of the South. Holy, like,
Straight up.
I would,
Alabama.
I just feel uncomfortable hearing that. Like,
We were like, literally, it was a giant bus full of black and brown kids just
Oh my
pouring around.
gosh.
But it
That's
was
so crazy.
amazing. It was amazing. I mean, I got to go to like a black church in Alabama on a Sunday, as a
Oh,
teacher
no church. Like, I mean, I've been to a black church in Texas,
in Texas.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, first of all, don't make plans for the day.
Yeah.
Go to a black church.
It was so cool. It was so
It
cool.
is. It's so lively and so
It is.
passionate. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, you can't help but have a good time.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. It's like a good time.
It is. It's a totally good time.
Yeah.
Um, I I have also worked in restaurants and in retail.
Yeah.
And I think those types of skills are like, if I think so many of us have within,
Yeah.
but I think there's a lot of people who also haven't.
Mhm.
And I know for myself what I think the kind of skills that you get in those type of industries can work across for you. What do you
Mhm.
think the biggest skills from working in restaurants and retail
Mhm.
have kind of helped you in whatever stage of career that you've been in?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's one specific, like, of not event, but like, I remember I was working at Nordstrom. I had been promoted to the manager of personal styling department. And this was like right at towards the end of the recession in like 2000, I don't know, 8 or 9, I forget when it was. But in that role, I was given this role and there was a team of like 7 people. And one guy on the team was a man who worked in the men's suits department, and he had been with Nordstrom for like 25 years, and he was like 62 years old or something. And I remember in that role, my manager was like, okay, the team has to do this. And she was telling me what like things we had to do and whatever. And I remember he just didn't respect me. Like I was 20 fucking something three, like, and he's like, you're just another little manager coming through here, right? And that role specifically, but I think it's a reflection of like so much of what I learned. I had to learn how to get his respect. And I had to learn how to communicate with him in a way that would kind of meet him where he's at. So, like, I had to be obviously, I was the manager of the department. So, like, I needed to have some type of authority, but I also needed to gain his respect because I acknowledge that I'm just one person going through this department and he's had many managers before me and he'll have many after. So that specific situation, I mean, I had to go to him and really build a relationship with him. And in that one relationship, what I learned that it's such a reflection in working in service industries is you will win when you are authentic, when you are real, when you put the walls down and you're real with somebody, like just real with them, you will get through to them at whatever level. Because if you want to get someone to open up, you have to open up.
Yeah.
So I remember coming to him and having this tough conversation. And I was like, look, I know I'm just another manager coming through. I know that. I'm 20 something, whatever years old. You've been doing this forever. I'm not trying to mess with your business. And this is really how it went. Like, I was like, I'm not trying to mess with your business. I'm here to support you. You tell me what you need. I got you. But I'm going to need your support too sometimes. And when, the store manager is telling us this, like, I need your support. I'll do whatever I got to do to have, like, what you need. I'll come down here and help you. I'll be your assistant. I don't care. But like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we grew such a strong relationship, and I just learned so much from that role. And it really gave me a sense of confidence that like in any room, even if you're dealing with someone who's arrogant or whatever, if you're wildly authentic, it makes them very uncomfortable because you're so secure in yourself. And that has done me so well in every job. And I think I got that from learning, working in the service industry and just being around a lot of different types of people, customers, and behind the scenes.
Wine break. Time to refill that glass and come back for more wine and chisme. No, I think that's totally true. It's that and um, you know, people seem to like even if people are yelling at you, whatever, I don't know. I mean, when you work in service industry at all
Oh,
in
yeah.
any way, you definitely get yelled at. I learned how to you know, be snarky with a smile, so to speak.
Yes.
How to get my
Yeah.
point across without being like super rude, but also firm, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is my final line. If you want to take this, you know, then, well, I used to work in a call center as well, and I was the escalation specialist.
The
Which
worst
is,
of the bunch.
yeah, which is, I don't know, a good thing or bad thing. I knew, but my thing would always be like, they probably, and I would ask my reps, like, what did you offer them? And then I'd offer them less than what my
Hmm.
reps did.
Yeah.
And because I didn't want to, like, I was like, no, I got your back. I'm gonna offer them
Yeah.
less. And then they'd be like, well, give me, I'd be like, I understand what they offered you, but now you're talking to the manager and I'm more than happy to help you. And this is how
Yeah.
it's always like we learned. I worked at AT&T for a long time. And we
Yeah.
learned you don't say what you can't do, you say what you can do.
That's so
So
good. Because I worked at Nordstrom, their like return policy was basically like you could return whatever you want.
anything.
So when I was like, because I was a department manager, we would rotate store manager, right? So you were in charge of the whole store, like, multiple times in the month. And there were so many times where people were just trying to like return thousands and
Oh
thousands of
yeah,
things.
people would get stuff from other stores and
Yeah.
like bring it back.
Yeah. So a lot of, I mean, in my experience, because I worked there specifically, a lot of the time we were very like, it's the customer, like we'll just do what the customer says, like it's not a big deal. But in the moments where it got really, really tough, um, yeah, and mine were like in person, right? Like I had to come up and be like, okay, what's going on. But even in those moments, I really tried to meet people. I'd be like, okay, what's the real deal here? Like
Mm,
what's happening on your side, and
yeah.
letting them talk, letting them hear the whole spiel, and then similar to like what you're saying is like meet them halfway. You know what you could do, right? Like they don't know all the
Yeah.
capabilities and the things you could do, right? But you got to be the one to just, and people just want to be heard. I mean, that not just in customer service, but just like in life, in relationships, like people want to be understood and heard. And that goes such a long way, like such a long way.
It really does because as soon as you just let people, sometimes you just let people say what they want to say and then they apologize afterwards. I'm sorry, I've just been getting the runaround, da, 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 da. But
Huh.
nobody had let them even say that, say
Yeah.
what they needed to say.
Yeah, 100%. That works for so many things, all negotiating, actually. Like if you just let people talk and even affirm them, like, that must really have been frustrating, right? Like it's crazy how much trust you could gain in those little moments. So true.
Yes.
So, so true.
First of all, I also want to, or second of all, I want to give you your flowers for continuing to go to college and everything. I graduated college at 37,
Thank you.
almost 20 years to the day that I graduated high school.
Wow. So
Yeah.
not a lot of people know the commitment, the freaking commitment it takes to feel like, is this really worth it? Is it
Yeah.
really worth it? Should I? And it would, at least for me, it would have made sense to give up so many times. Like it
So
would,
what made you not give up? What made you like
like
keep
my mom's
going?
confidence. I was the daughter who went to college. My sister didn't go to college. So it's like I was her last, little like so much of her confidence was wrapped up in my graduating college. So that actually did have a big piece of it. But I think once I was, 5, 6 years in, I think it really was like this challenge of like, you've already done all this work. Like you've already done all this work. Like go to the finish line. And when
Yeah.
oh my God, it was torture at the very end. Like my last class that I had to finish after I graduated was, I think it was like accounting 101. Like it was like a beginner class that like I had failed once or twice. And I just remember, and I let that go on for so long, but it's flowers to you. 20 years, the amount of times you must have had a conversation with yourself to quit. I couldn't.
Well, I kind of went back and forth, right? Like
Yeah.
we moved, I got accepted. I was living in Albuquerque. I'm originally from San Diego County, and 2 weeks
Yeah.
before my junior year, we moved to Albuquerque.
Uh-huh.
I got accepted to UNM, and then we were moving back to California, and I did not want to stay in New Mexico by
Yeah.
myself to go to school. I didn't even want to be there. So
Yeah.
I came home and had to reestablish residency and went through the things. I mean, I went through a point where my parents' check bounced, so I couldn't attend anymore. I had to go
Yeah.
through all of these things, and I moved to Dallas, and finally I was like, you know what? I need to go to school. Like it was always something for me that I always wanted to do.
That's good.
And so I went through, and yeah, I mean, when you're working full time and going to school full
Yeah.
time, and as you get older, it's not like you have the energy of an 18 to 22-year
Yeah.
old,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was supporting me. It was
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah. Imagine.
And yeah, it was tough, but I remember one semester I did 15, I was working full time and did 15 hours. How did I do that? I have no idea.
It's crazy.
So I definitely had, I think, and please tell me if you felt the same way. There was definitely times where I was just exhausted, but there was just always something in the back of my mind because I was, maybe for you, you felt that from your mom, but for me, it was really more pressure for me than anything else. Neither of my parents went to college.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't pressure me. I think like I always pressured myself more than anybody else
Mm.
in regards to education. But now I don't ever want to go back to school again.
Yeah. No, I yeah. I so relate to that. It's my mom didn't even pressure me. I think it's that I knew she wanted it. I mean, she would kind of pressure me, but not like heavily. But I think for me, after so many years in the game, I just wanted to finish to say I'd finished. And now I look back and I'm really proud of myself. But I will say, like, I knew I always wanted to start a business. Like I studied business and I always knew I wanted to go that direction. So a part of me is like, dang, like you should have just started a fucking business. But I didn't have the confidence, I think, to do it at the time. And two, I learned so much by finishing something that was really hard. Like
Yeah.
I think just finishing it and graduating, my biggest takeaway was like, okay, I can do very hard things, like end in point. I could do hard things. I I could manage the emotions of doing something that is a long game, that is hard, and I could finish. And I think that was a big deal to me.
You know, it's so funny when you say that. I'm thinking to myself, she probably had been doing really hard things her whole life, but that was her life. So she
Yeah.
never thought about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But this thing was different than a
Yeah.
different thing that she'd ever done.
Yeah.
So that's what you focused on. But you probably, I mean, so many of us have gone through so many hard things and we don't think about it because it's just you, life goes on. But this
Yeah.
is just a different accomplishment, a different way.
Yeah. And
So
first too, like
yeah.
nobody understands. Like I remember my mom just like constantly like, when are you gonna finish? How many, like asking all these questions. And I'm like, yo, like I'm trying. Like I'm really
You're like,
trying.
you don't even understand.
Yeah, yeah. And just, yeah, I think just taking full ownership of your growth and what you want to do. Because I remember like in the beginning I failed because I didn't know how to be a student. Like no one ever taught me how to be a good student. And I clearly didn't teach myself. So I didn't
Mm.
even know how to properly study. I didn't know that you went to your teacher to ask questions. Like I just I always have had a business mindset. So everything just felt like a game. And I always kind of felt like this little like politician in life where I was like, okay, I have a very good vision of like from the outside what this looks like. So I was good at getting what I wanted. But in college, you can't just get what you want. You have to earn what you want, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that was the first place where it kind of checked me because it was like, oh, honey, you're like, you know, your personality and your mouth isn't gonna get you that far here. Like it will help, but it ain't gonna get you that far. So I think learning that lesson and then really challenging myself to learn hard things was big for me.
No, I think people forget, like, especially when you go when you're on that long track or you
Mhm.
go later in life. I call myself a later in life student.
Yeah.
Um, how much how hard that can be because you see everybody around you graduating, starting their things, and you're still plugging away or you're going back or you're this or that. I know you said you always wanted to start your own business, but did you ever have an idea like me? I didn't. I
Mhm.
did. I mean, I knew I don't think all of this. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. You are definitely not an accidental entrepreneur because you had that mindset from go. I always say that it always seems like there's two types of parents. The
Mhm.
parents that are entrepreneurs, so you learn a lot by watching them and you get to experience things, and then you have parents like I'm assuming maybe your parent, my parents, in regards to you go to school, you get a steady job, you get your benefits, do
Mhm.
like they were not entrepreneurs in any sense of the word.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have to have a level of risk. I think I am extremely risk tolerant, and I think that's why I'm so like I always wanted to be an entrepreneur because I always had this understanding that people in business were really like, you know, they were calling shots and like they weren't scared to take risks. And I don't know where I got that from. It's probably just natural, but like I'm very risk tolerant and I'm very naturally optimistic. So for the most part, I feel like I could get myself out of any pickle, like for the most part. And I think that kind of energy is very helpful in business, you know, like it's very helpful to naturally be willing to look a lot of directions to find solutions, you know?
What would you say your non-business related risk has been in your life?
Non-business related risk. I mean, there's tons of ones when I was like very young making dumb decisions, but I let me look at if I look at the risk, like the bigger risks I took in my life, I think number one, the first one that comes to mind is definitely leaving my great paying job. Number two, trying to think. I think in college, when I got married, my husband and I kind of together decided that I would quit my job at Nordstrom, which was really successful, to go all into school and finish school. That felt like a big risk. And I mean, I think all of these moments were like, I've had a lot of moments where like I went all into something.
Mhm.
And what it's done is just help me manage and realize how ego plays a role in so much of what we do. Because for me, it's like there's so many times where I took like, you know, and I say not from like a status point of view, but from like a social status or whatever, like where I was, you know, I had a great job at Nordstrom as like a manager, blah, 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 to like going back to the sales floor because I want to go finish school, you know, making those decisions, they felt big at that time. They felt big at that time. I will also say having my second son, um, that was a big deal for me. I mean, it was business related. I mean, not literally business related, but happened right after my biggest year in business. So that was very scary for me to learn how to navigate all of, this whole, motherhood, but in business when business is already so, it's just so crazy by itself. So I'd say, I don't know, those were probably the ones that come up the most. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
so you go from Nordstrom, you go to work in tech. Obviously, Latinas in tech, like being a Latina in tech, being
yeah,
a woman in tech is already hard.
yeah,
Then you're
yeah,
adding another layer, whether being a Latina in tech.
yeah.
What was your like just experience? Did people look at you for you, or were they looking at you as a woman, or were they looking at you as a Latina woman?
Yeah, I think in looking back, honestly, looking back, I think a lot of the thoughts I had about it were more me projecting that because for the most part, I had a really good experience in tech. I mean, outside of like microaggressions and little racist comments from some people, like very limited people. But outside of that, I think most people are willing to just, they'll see, at least in my experience, they'll see you as you. I put myself in a lot of boxes. Like I had, one thing that I have always, I just was telling my husband this, I have never, ever had like a manager who was a man, ever. Ever. That's a lie. In restaurant business, I did. But as
Yeah.
a professional adult, in every role I had at Nordstrom, every tech job I had, I never had a boss that was a man. Not that that would be a problem. I would actually love a boss that's a manager that was a man. But I think what it did is it gave me a sense of freedom because I felt understood by women, right?
Mm.
So I did feel kind of safe to like be myself. And I mean, I did and I didn't. I think as I grew up and got more experience, I learned more that like, I don't really care what people think. Like it's helpful for me to just believe that I'm just as important as everybody else and my opinion is, etc. That has been helpful, but I think I've grew a lot of that as an entrepreneur, like as
Got
an
it.
entrepreneur has helped me just, I mean, you have to embrace, at least in my experience, because so much of my business is my personal brand. So it's like you have to embrace who you are because, no one's going to save you from this role. Um,
That's right.
no one's going to save you here.
No.
So I think about that often. Yeah, about how I always think how it would be interesting going back to tech now because I'd be so confident and so myself. I probably would offend a lot of people.
I just feel like sometimes having a woman as a boss can be a like sometimes it's a really great thing and sometimes it's a really bad thing. I've had women
I mean,
bosses who were being like 19 years old and they're in their 30s threatened by me and I'm like I'm 19. I'm learning. What?
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
understand why you're directing this
yeah.
energy towards me. But then my biggest supporters have been Black women. Those have been my advocates. Those have been the women I've learned from the
Mm.
most
I
as
mean, we
far as
have a
bosses.
lot. I feel like we have a lot to learn from Black women across the board. I mean,
Absolutely.
like everybody does.
Yes, not yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You decided to leave tech.
Yeah.
I'm assuming a really great position, you said you're financially motivated, so obvious, so I'm sure it had something to do with that. But what was it? Like what did you see that you're like it's time to step away? And
Yeah.
I think oftentimes like we many of us do start our jobs as side hustles or our entrepreneurial journeys as like this is what I'm doing now and eventually grow it, but sometimes you leave before it's growing. Like I'm still learning and growing and all of those things and trying to figure out where's the next path for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you decide, okay, I'm letting go of this salary, I'm letting go of this because I'm letting go of this thing that I've known for so long
Yeah.
to do this thing on my own that may or may not have been making, making any money at the time.
Yeah. It um it was a huge decision. I will say it was during COVID, so I was getting paid and then my job was not eliminated. But my job, like I worked for Adobe Systems. The tech company that I worked for got they bought out the tech company. Adobe bought out our company. So I ended up working for Adobe for like a year or two. And it was when I had my first child, that really, like when he was born, it was such a experience, but he really helped me. It was like a mirror because it was like, okay, Kat, are you just going to tell your son to like believe that anything's possible to him, that he could do anything in this world? Or are you going to be an example and show him? Because he's not going to just believe you. He's going to ask why you don't, right? So when he was born, that thought immediately came to my brain. And I kind of knew like something was like, oh shit, like I can't be fake with him, you know? Um, and once COVID happened, they eliminated my role, but they kept me there and they were like, you could basically apply to any of these jobs. So I kind of milked the system. And by that time, I had been doing a couple years of testing out different content, having little mini side hustles. I had a fashion blog years before that. I was on YouTube trying to do my thing. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And at that time, right after my son was born, I started my podcast in late 2019. And then that was the first piece of content I committed to promoting and I committed to growing. And when that grew to, I think it was 10K downloads in like 7 months, I remember thinking, I was like, I think this is a lot of people. Like, I think this is like, this could be something. And I remember selling my first offer, which was like a one-on-one package for like $500 or something, and having people reach out to me to buy it. And those were the things I was just like, what? This is crazy. Um, but I will say that like the actual deciding to leave my job was a big that I went back and forth with. And I had to have a lot of conversations with my husband, right? Like he needed to be bought on too. And I was not, I mean, I had brought home $3,000 like ever in my business at that point. Like that was the total, probably less actually. I think it was more like 2000 something.
That's a huge gamble. I mean, like you think of
Yeah, it
it, right?
was.
You probably now you think, oh my gosh, what was I
Yeah,
thinking?
it was a huge gamble. But I was so sick and tired of my shit. I remember like I just was toying with my business in my like I just had so much belief that it could work. And I remember thinking just like I need to make this happen. And what I decided to do is I created a plan, like a very, very high risk plan. It wasn't a good plan, but like I wouldn't recommend it to people unless their body and their intuition is deeply telling them. If that's not you, then you should probably prepare like a good nest egg or like money, okay? But for me, I told myself, what if I go to Adobe and so I just decided I'm going to go to Adobe. I'm going to ask for a severance when I'm deciding to leave. I don't know who even gave me permission to ask. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking,
That's
but
amazing.
I was like, I'm going to do that and I'm going to get as much money as I can. And then I'm going to tell my husband that with this money, I'm going to get a nanny because I needed time to work. And that was the challenge. I was basically a full-time mom at that point, and I needed time to work in my business. So that's what was felt like the gamble to me. Like I felt like I could do it, but I needed time and I needed that time. So I don't know why the fuck I wasn't using my salary, but whatever.
The
Now
things
looking
that
back,
hindsight, right? Hindsight.
but I ended up negotiating with Adobe to pay me to leave. And I was like, look, I'm not liking any of these roles. Remember, because I was like,
Yeah.
playing roles. I'm not liking any of these roles, and this is not what I intended to do at Adobe. I would like to leave, and I would like a 6 month severance. I don't know the cojones I had. Literally, don't even know. They ended up giving me like a month and a half, which I still thought was very generous.
Especially you're going to them saying it.
Yeah, like I'm quitting and I want your money.
Wait, this is the kind of delulu that we need to have. When people say you need to be delulu about yourself, this is the
I
kind of what that we're
was
talking about.
in my head, I was just problem solving. I was like, Adobe has money. They're a great company. They'll do it. Like that was what my head was telling me. So I did that. And then I was like, whatever money I get, that will be the money that I get a nanny for. And then I'll have time. And it's exactly what I did. Like this was 2020, like October of 2020, I made that deal with Adobe. They only gave me like $5,000 or something, but I also negotiated medical coverage because I was covering medical coverage. So I negotiated 4 months of coverage for my family. And I made a deal with myself that we're going all fucking in, and there's absolutely nothing I'm not willing to do to make my business grow. Like that was just it. And the next 2 months were really difficult from a mindset perspective, but in January of 2021, my business took off. Like it took off and literally went from like 2020, I probably made like $10,000 the second half of the year and 12, 13,000 the whole year. And then the next year it turned, I mean, it was like over 200K. But it was like laser focused and like a lot of like this has to work. Like this has to work.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about like what you actually do, right?
Yeah.
Because you you say you went from making 10K to 200K like you said as a ADHD Latina mom business owner.
Yeah.
You really teach people like ethical sales skills that
Yeah.
every online business and which is key. It's key. It kills me when I will say this. My husband works in now he works in HVAC
Yeah.
and their job, is obviously to help people, but when they find problems, they are obviously selling as well.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I admire about him is that he's like, nah, I'll give him a discount or I'll do this because he's like, they'll call me back. They'll
Mhm.
call me back in the future. And when they need to actually purchase this, like their system can work for right now, but when they are really in need,
Yeah.
they'll call me
Yeah.
because I'm not trying to like shove things down their throat, which
Yeah.
is what we see online all the time of people trying to like shove all of these things down your throat. And it feels inauthentic. But also, we also have stages of life, right? We also have stages of life, new, like I will say, like I'm guessing you and I know me, like the essence of who I am has never changed,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's new versions of me.
100%.
There's new things that I'm still discovering in myself. And you teach people how to embrace that and how to use that and how to stay authentic in these other phases of life and their different
Yeah.
versions of themselves.
Yeah. I when I was starting out, because I didn't even know I wanted to do coaching. I had a podcast and I started offering like these calls, strategy calls, I used to call them. And my audience started reaching, I literally would just be like, hey, I remember the first time I recorded a podcast episode, and at the very end, I said, if you're interested in a strategy call, email this email. Like it was so hard to even do. And like I literally got a couple emails and I was like, oh, like this is like a whole thing. And I started doing, I think I did like a podcast. Oh, I did a podcast course. Once I hit like 10K downloads, I was like, I'll do a course, right? That made like $1,000. I sold it for like, I don't know, $77 or 97 or something. And then what happened was once I started having customers, like real paying customers, they are the ones that kind of shifted. Like I did a group program right after the course, and I remember I had like 6 people in that group, and they all were like, can you teach me how to be a coach? And I was like, I don't I'm learning. Like I'm bright. Like I'm very fresh at this. And I was very honest about that. And they're like, well, what do you do here and there and whatever? So I was like, okay, if they have a need, I'm gonna like tell them what I know, right? So I
Right.
started sharing and telling them what I know. And then I sold my first one-on-one client. That happened very much by mistake. And I mean, she said yes to like a $2,500 offer for me at that time. That was mind blowing. I wasn't even selling her on that. I was selling her on my group program that was like $700, which to me was a lot of money. And I just offered her a one-on-one as like to make this one look good. I was like, no one's gonna buy this. And she's like, I want the one-on-one. And that kind of blew my mind because I was like, I was not selling her on this. She wants this instead. That's crazy. And I had been resisting selling one-on-one, especially high ticket, because of this, like, like the reputation that it had. And after that, I really had like a come to Jesus moment too, with like me and my business and what I wanted to do. And what I decided at the very end of 2020, going into 2021, which turned out to be like the year that like a lot changed in my business, was I was like, okay, Kat, you started all of this because you wanted to create a space for Latinas, for women of color, to talk about personal growth. And my podcast, like the first version of my podcast, was basically me learning a strategy, taking action on the strategy, and reporting back. And I was very honest always. I'm like, I'm starting a business, don't really know what I'm doing, like, la, la, la. Like, the episodes are still there, like, everyone could hear them. It was a diary. So when my business got to this point where I was like, okay, I have someone willing to pay this much money, I was like, okay, that's interesting, right? But then I also thought about it. I was like, if I'm really going to be a coach, like my clients are asking me to be a coach, right? If I'm really going to be a coach, then I have to do my fucking best, excuse my language, to be very good at this and really dedicate myself to helping people get results. So, the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that I wanted to commit to selling one-on-one coaching only. And my mindset was like, you become the best coach. Like, don't just do this because it's high ticket and whatever. Like, do this because you're gonna, like, you want to be the best. Like, this is gonna be the thing that really helps you impact people. That was one mindset. And then the other mindset was I want to become a great coach and I have to help people get results. There's no fucking point if we don't help people get results. So
Absolutely.
I committed to that mindset. And what I did was I started using my marketing and content as this vessel of like, I'm going to make it my mission to help people. At that time, I didn't even have like a niche. I was just helping people like grow online and whatever. I'm just gonna do everything I can. So I started going ham on content and just serving so much. And what happened was I started creating a lot of demand and people just wanted to work with me purely based off of this mindset of like, I'm done with the drama with content. I don't have to be pretty. I don't have to have branding. I don't have to whatever. I'm going to show up and really deliver in content. And I mean, it worked. And I made a deal with myself specifically to like, I didn't have a proper website when I was selling one-on-one. All my content was not Canva. It was selfies of me and Twitter posts at that time and captions full of value. I used to do lives just teaching whatever. And that turned into me helping other Latinas get better at marketing and sales and shift their mindset around sales. Because the way
Mhm.
I think about selling is like it is the utmost of in service, like the best way. And now, like fast forward to now, years in, I am incredibly passionate about helping women of color. I mean, 99% of my clients are Latinas, helping Latinas and women of color sell more because it's a fucking skill that that nobody could take away from you. And when you
Yeah.
understand that like you could make money anytime you want off of anything, And do it from a place of service. Those are at least for me, those are connected. And anyways, I could go ham on this. Obviously, I'm very excited.
No, no, that's why you're here, girl. That's why you're
I'm just
here.
very passionate
I
about
can
it
hear that.
because I really, really do believe that if we really, thinking of my clients here, if like you really want to make an impact, being in service and offering them an actual offer that is in exchange for money, yes. But you also become a person that is so wildly committed to them and their success. If you guys can meet, that could change the fucking world. And that's what really happened to me. Excuse my language. I'm so sorry.
Girl,
Um,
no, you can cuss. It's okay.
really, that's
Yes.
what happened. And then that year it blew my own mind because I was like, oh my God, like all of my clients were one-on-one. I was so committed to just like, I want to help these women grow their business. And it happened very organically. And yeah.
Because you were authentic. You let people see who you were. And I think that's so important. I think like oftentimes when people, we definitely need to talk about on social media, like we tend to put our highlights, right? We tend to put our
Yeah.
highlight reel
Yeah.
on it. But it's really important. So I actually I was going through a lot and I was sharing um like what was happening because I think it's really important to share those things
It
for
is.
along with the happy stuff. Like,
Yeah.
guys, I'm having a bad day. It's okay you have a bad day. And
Mhm.
I got like somebody who I'm still acquaintance, like I'm still friends with in Dallas. Apparently, a bunch of people have messaged her
Mhm.
about, is Jessica okay? So she reached out to me. Hey girl, are you? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just not putting all happy stuff. Like I'm letting people know I'm a real person too.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm great. I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm happy. At that point, I wasn't the healthiest because I was going through all these,
Yeah.
health issues in my womb, but I was fine. And it's so crazy how if people see you one way, right? And they take that at, but we all have so many facets to us. So how do you help women? Like, what if a woman's coming to you trying to transition, maybe starting a business, maybe not knowing her, maybe coming a new version. Maybe she just became a mom. Maybe she just became an empty nester. Maybe she just got married. Maybe she just got divorced. Like any of these things,
Mhm.
different versions of ourselves can come out in every day, right? Dealing with the people we're interacting. How do you tell people or teach people that they can still be authentic while still embracing all of these different versions of themselves?
Yeah, oh my God, I have so much to say about this. But I think something that people don't understand, or at least I didn't understand about authenticity is that when you are transitioning, especially when you're transitioning from into a different identity, um, and that could be mom, it could be like for me, a big one was becoming an entrepreneur, right? Like actually making money in your business and receiving, right? Like money versus being the person who's like struggling in your side hustle. They're different identities, right? Same with motherhood, same with a job. Like it could be anything, a wife, right? Whatever. I think what a lot of people, what we find as authentic in one identity will feel inauthentic in another. There's a YouTube video about this called, I want to say it's called Authenticity Paradox. And it's about when you are elevating your current authentic self struggles with being authentic because you know that you're here now at this level. And this identity gives a lot of less fucks. This identity is not triggered by certain things, right? This new identity um, is almost like thriving in their joy instead of being afraid to offend people, right? Or whatever, right? It could be whatever. And that transition is hard. because it feels inauthentic. And when you, especially when we go back to sales and marketing, I think one thing I believe deeply is that you, I always want people to be able to be themselves in any room they're in, right? Like to be so sure about themselves and be their authentic self in any room they're in. But what I find is that when you're doing something new, it clashes, right? Like it clashes with your current authentic self. So for you, for when you're transitioning, I think what you have to remember is that it's going to feel fake sometimes. It's going to feel wrong. It's going to be wildly vulnerable for you to lead, right? For you to be to go to the next level. And you're also going to be misunderstood. Like not everyone's going to understand you, right? Like even just the story you said, it's like someone's like, "Oh, worried about you because you decided to be vulnerable online and be real," right? When one person will be like, "Oh my God, whatever." And then the next person is going to be, "Oh my God, that's so brave. If Jessica can do it, so can I." She's a human. Look, she's a human, just like me. Gives me such rest, right? But not everybody is going to understand that, right? Not
Yeah.
everybody's going to feel that. And that's okay. I think so much of what I've learned in sales and like marketing and building my business, especially because it's so public facing, is that my, like, especially as a salesperson, like, my content is for my clients.
Yeah, we can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah, that's it. It's for my clients, for my audience, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. And I think once I really decided that my content is 100% for my people, and I'm 100% allowed to be the current version of myself in my freaking business, I gained such freedom in my marketing. I gained such freedom in my business because it's like you can't do wrong.
Yeah. No, it's so funny you say that because sometimes we hit something when we do something like, say, put a story and we don't think anything of it, but it hits in a way that you didn't think. For like it's been raining, and I'm in San Diego. And look, I do not run. I do not like to run. And it was it was that hard, like started light and then those harder, like
Yeah.
right before it starts to pour, start coming down. And so all of a sudden I'm running and I don't like to run and I'm recording it and you see me running and I'm like, I don't run. Or I think, and then I posted something else about I don't, if it was a serial killer or a wild animal or the rain, that's the only time I run.
Ah,
And I said, and if it's a serial killer or an animal that wants to kill me, I probably just give up and just be like, you know what, you're gonna win anyways.
yeah.
Like you're gonna just, and so
Whatever.
I had so many people like respond to that because they're like,
Yeah.
oh girl, I feel the same way. I feel the same
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And I just have to add one. If there is somebody delivering wine and I need to get there, I will run. Those are the only things. But it's just so funny because it's truly like it's totally the truth. If you know me for any length of time, I will walk
Yeah.
I will walk miles and miles. I love to walk, but I hate to run.
Yeah.
But it was just so funny because sometimes we think those things are just so, and they are personal to us, but how
Yeah.
many other people
Yeah.
relate to that?
Yeah.
I
And a
forget.
lot of my business when I was marketing, like the reason people, like the reason I grew demand was because I was sharing my growth. I was literally like talking to my audience and saying like, okay, like I'm trying, like I'm going in on one, like we'll see, like I was very, very forward and real about what was happening. And in the middle of the realness, I was educating and I was giving value, right? And I was teaching people what I knew, and I was always really honest about, like, I remember the beginning of the that year. You know how everybody puts in their bio, like the business coaches, or will put like $1 million or
Oh
100K.
yeah.
And I mean, I've done it now at this point, but at that time, I remember thinking like, well, I'm not $1 million coach. I'm not a 100K coach. Oh, and I told myself, well, what are you? And I was like, I mean, I've sold $5,000 in 2 weeks, right? Or something like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put that. Like, don't fucking work with me then. I don't give a fuck. Like, this is the real, this is real, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember doing that and I was just like, fuck it. And I was just giving myself so much permission to be like real. But like it turns out that that's what attracted people, right? Like one of my main long-term clients came to me and she's just like, you know, I literally like reached out to you because you had $5,000 and everyone else had 100,000 or whatever.
Because it's
Like,
relatable,
we're
right?
so real. Yeah. But at that time, I wasn't even trying to be relatable. I was trying to be like, look, because I had my own thoughts about coaching, right? Like, I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be one of those coaches. So in my head, I was like, well, I'll just have to be very honest, you know, like they have to make the decision to work with me. Like, I'll be very honest. I'll always be forward and like, it's always their decision. And I think that attitude gave me so much permission to just be real. And even in my content, I would share, like, I'd be like, oh my God, I had my 10K month and 15K month, whatever. And then I remember my first like zero sales month, like in that year. And I was like, well, I should also share this month, you know, like I should also do that. And I remember that when I shared that post of like, this month I did $0, right? And everybody appreciated it at that time because it was like, yeah, this is how business goes, you know, like business isn't
Yeah.
like hurrah, hurrah all the time. Um, I think it gives you a lot of permission to do you when you're willing to be honest with people and your audience specifically. At least,
Oh, absolutely. I love all of that. That's
yeah.
so, no, it's so important to remember that. And I think also we have to remember that everybody starts somewhere. Not
Yeah.
everybody starts at, and so I could totally see that. Like you're looking at somebody, you want to start something, you want to learn something, and you see somebody at him and you're just like first you might be thinking, oh my gosh, how much are they going to charge me? Or you
Yeah.
might be thinking like, or they don't look like me, then maybe they didn't have the struggles that I had, or they've probably been doing this for a super long time. I mean, there's just a flood of thoughts that come in, right? I'm just starting and I want to know somebody who's maybe just a little bit ahead so I can feel like I can grasp the
Yeah.
information. So
100%.
I could totally see somebody going, you know what? Like she looks like me, she sounds like me, she has good days and bad days. Like what I want to go with her, and you're obviously resonating. I will
Yeah.
say, I know you say on your podcast, you're very like, it's mostly a solo podcast. You do have guests,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah. Yeah.
do a lot of solo, which I applaud because I hate doing solo episodes. The
Well,
the
that's
only time I
shifted.
do them is
Yeah.
because is when I feel like there's really something that I need to say that needs to only come from me.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm like, here you
Yeah.
go. Here's your platform.
You know, I started my podcast as both with guests and with solo episodes. But, you know, once my business started really moving, it really became this vessel where like I just got to teach my clients. My whole mindset was like, you should be able to make money and grow your business without ever working with me. That's my goal. And then if once you that's moving, then if you want to work with me, come work with me, right? But like my content was like, I mean, everything I was creating was just like, I'm going to give you a masterclass on everything I've learned to be true about growing your business. And that's, you know, if that's what I got to do, that's what I got to do. But I will say, like, those transitions, like transitioning my podcast, especially when I switched niches and I really got like all into coaching, that was a big transition for me. Like, I had to grieve what I had built in my podcast, and I had to like really, because my podcast now has become a marketing, like a lead generation, you know, like marketing channel, right? From a business
Mm.
standpoint. So my thought process had to change about my podcast so much, which was really difficult because my podcast was this very safe space for me for a long, long time. And even now, like we're transitioning it again, and you know, there's lots of changes I want to make to the podcast now again, but you know, it goes with phases of business and like what's best for your people and your community and your business, you know.
Uh, girl, we've already that time has
I know, I know.
flown by. No, 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 I know. I'm just like, I always love these conversations because I want more. But then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a how. So, first of all, how do people work with you if they want to work with you? How they get to know a little bit more about you? And I always want to make sure, like, if there's anything that we didn't say or you wanted to share anything additional, I want to give you the opportunity to do that now as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, I appreciate you so, so much for having me on. Now the way I work with people is in my program. It's called Show Up Real. I called it that because it really is a program that I needed, like even before I started my business. It's about building your community and showing up in content. But I'll say, like, if you're listening to this and you're like, I like this girl, best place to go is my podcast first. I think, get to know me a little bit. On Show Up Real podcast. Outside of that, Instagram is where I mainly hang out at Cat Del Carmen. Where you'll also get to know me there. But I mainly work with people who want to show up in content, creators, or currently coaches and entrepreneurs who want to show up authentically in their marketing. And that's important to them. They value that. So if that is you, come check me out. But listen to my podcast. Do
And
some.
I listen to your podcast because I know you say I'm very picky about who I have on as guests.
I am every time I have because so much I mean, literally for like 2 years, I had like no guests, and I mean, I'm so grateful because you said yes to me. But you know how many pitches,
Yes.
come in all the time, So I think, you know, I
I have. Do you ever feel bad saying no to somebody who pitches you?
not anymore. I mean, at
Yeah.
this point.
At the beginning, I did, but I
Yeah, at
do
the
still
beginning.
try and be soft about my no because I've
Yeah.
had people pitch me that from wine,
Yeah.
right? Like wine experts, but I'm like,
Yeah.
you're an older white man,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
appreciate you wanting to come on,
Yeah.
but like this is not who this space is for.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, to me, I'm like, you do your homework. Like anybody, you know what I
I
mean?
just
Like,
got another one, and I'm like, you did. I'm not even responding to you because you obviously did not.
yeah.
I mean, I get a lot of wine people just because of the podcast name. But
Yeah.
I'm like, you obviously, and if they address you at like they address me as Dear Wine and Chisme, I'm like, I have a
Yeah.
website. You can see my name.
Yeah. Go learn. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I think most pitches are just inauthentic, So even when I'm doing my pitching, like luckily I have a great online business manager who handles a lot for me. So I don't even have to be in front of it. But I am very particular when it comes to guests, but I'm also very particular when it comes to pitching. It's really important to me that I am the person who like reads that email, edits that email, and like shows up like 100% me. We have like a little template, but like it's incredibly moldable and like I have to really do my own homework to know who I'm sending it to. I think that's because I'm a podcaster. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because it's like, respect. So
No,
I
I have a friend who helps me with my PR, even though I'm PR, but doing my own is very
yeah,
different. But I still will want to see anything before it goes out, like
yeah,
any pitches before
yeah,
it goes out. Because if
yeah.
you're talking, nobody's a better expert on you than you.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I have questions for you then. Well, I'm gonna have to have you on my show. How about that? And then I can learn all about you
Yes, I would love to. I
and
would
your
love to.
business.
And I know how picky
I
you
would
are,
love,
so that
but
makes me so excited.
that time I will bring wine. Okay. That episode is gonna be like a Friday. It's gonna be the same around this time.
Yeah, we could do it. We could do
I
it.
would have got wine. I should have got wine. You know what? I'm going to the gym after this, and
There you go. I know I've been trying to like sneak in walks with the dogs really quick before it starts raining again, but Catalina, thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey, what you're doing. I love it. And listen to her podcast. Look, mi gente, I'm gonna be like promoting everybody else because there is enough room for all of us to
it,
succeed. So go check out the Show Up Real podcast with Kat. with Catalina and freaking like follow her on Instagram, do all of the things, show
Yeah.
her the love because that's what we do here.
Yeah. I appreciate you. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you. Until next time, mi gente.
Bye.
Hola, mi gente. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Wine and Chisme podcast. If you would like to hear more wine and more chisme, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Saludos.